All right, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to have us again this week on Safeoclock Health and Safety Interactive Workshop. My name is Johnson Mwal. And as our culture has been, we start with a presentation, and that presentation can be led by any of us. But this week, I'm leading the presentation. So we have a topic for discussion today. Today's topic is management of workplace violence. So that is what we'll be discussing. And I will take the few minutes out of our time to share my knowledge in the presentation. And after that, we'll now open the floor for others to share their experience and contribute their knowledge on the topic. So let's begin. We are talking about workplace. So we want to give it a definition so that we actually understand what we are talking about when we say workplace. Workplace means any location that is away from the employee's home where he performs his job. Any location he performs his work-related activities outside his home is regarded as workplace. Now, what this simply means is that if you are a driver, or if you are somebody, a dispatch rider, within that time you are performing your job, you are performing your duty from point A to point B, you are at your workplace. So workplace doesn't necessarily mean a fixed location. So when we talk about violence at workplace, we are not referring to what happens only at a fixed location, but we are talking about the incident or anything that transpires while the employee is going about his job. So while he's still at his job outside his home. So that is what we refer to as the workplace. Now let's look at definition of workplace violence. We can say it's any physical assault or any threatening behavior or any verbal abuse that is done on any employee while he is discharging his duties at the course of his duties. So any of verbal assault, physical assault, threatening behaviors that is done on an employee at the course of his duty. So we regard that as violence at work. Another definition of violence, workplace violence, is any attempt or threat, whether the attempt is verbal or physical, to inflict injury upon an employee. That is another definition of violence at work. Or any intentional display of force that will give the employee any reason to be afraid. That is another violence. Any intentional physical contact with a person without his consent is also a violence behavior. So let's look at another definition of violence incident. Any form of harassment that gives an employee the reason to be afraid, that is also referred to as violent behavior or violence at workplace. So having looked at these scenarios or this definition of violence at workplace, we can also say if an employee is being stalked, if somebody is monitoring the employee very closely, we can also classify that as violence at work because it brings fear, it builds fear in the employee or in the workers' minds. So that is also part of violent behavior. Now, there are four major types of workplace violence that we'll be looking at. The first one is the violence that is committed by customers or clients, those people that are not employed, those people that are major stakeholders that your services are dependent on. the violence that they commit. There's also another violence that is associated with criminal behaviors. These ones are done by criminals. There's another violence that is done among the co-workers, between an employee and employee. There's also another violence that is carried over from home to the workplace. That is another type of violence. So let's take them one after the other. Violence committed by customers or clients. Clients are those people who depend on your services or who you are working for. So those type of violence that they commit on the employees are referred to as in this category. For example, nurses who are working in psychiatric homes or psychiatric facilities, or police officers or prison staffs who attend to the public or the inmates. So those violence that they experience, of course, they are still in their duty post. So those violence comes under this category. There's another violence that is carried out by criminal acts. So this one is done by people who are not the employees. They don't have any legitimate relationship to that business. They just come for this particular act. They come to cause violence. They come to cause chaos. So this violence is classified under this category caused by criminals. For instance, taxi drivers, security guards who are on their duty, they could be attacked, they could be injured by criminals. So this violence that employees face are categorized under this category of violence by criminals. Another type, and the most common, is the violence among co-workers or managers. So this is what we experience or what we witness in day-to-day activities in the workplace, especially between manager and the subordinate, or between supervisor and the lower worker. So this type of violence is what happens on day-to-day activities at work, where the supervisor threatens another employee or inflicts physical pain or physical injury on that person. So that type of violence comes under this category. Now, the last category is the violence that is carried over from home to the workplace, that originated from maybe activities that was going on in the home, and because of the personal relationships, the person involved in that violence carried it over to the workplace. So there are some warning signs. There are certain things that you will notice and you know that these are warning signs of violence, and actions should be taken and should not be allowed to get to the point of physical injury before actions are taken. The first one is if there is direct or indirect threat of harm. If somebody tells you, I'm going to break your head with this hammer, that is a violence. It's a sign of violence. So you don't wait until he has done that before action is taken. So threat behaviors are part of violence at workplace. It's not only when the threat has been accomplished before you start taking action. So threat behaviors, threats are part of violence at work. Intimidations. So when somebody intimidates you, try to use his position to intimidate you or to force you to do something that you are not supposed to do, that is also a sign of violence and it needs to be reported. Harassment and bullying. If somebody keeps harassing you, keeps pressurizing you, keeps stalking you at your workplace, then that is a sign of violence and it needs to be reported. Conflicts, numerous conflicts. If the conflict keeps coming from time to time, you keep having conflict with this same person or same group of people, that is a sign of violence that is on the pipeline, and it should not be overlooked. Something has to be done. You need to report to the management, or you need to follow your violence prevention procedure in the workplace. Bringing a weapon to work. If somebody brings a weapon or unauthorized objects to work, that is also a sign of violence that should not be allowed to slide. It should be reported. Inappropriate reference to weapons. If you are just discussing with somebody and all of a sudden he points at a particular weapon and he tells you that, remember, this thing is still here, or remember, this hammer is in this location. So inappropriate reference to weapons. Or when you are discussing with somebody and all of a sudden he tells you that I have a gun at home. So he's referencing weapons when there is no need for it. That is a sign of violence, and it should not just be neglected. It should be reported and actions should be taken immediately. Fascination with incidents of workplace violence. Somebody who gets so excited with incident of violence, or maybe he keeps remembering a particular violent incident that occurred in the workplace. From time to time, he brings it up. He reminds you that at so time, so person was injured during a fight or during a confrontation in the workplace. So that person is fascinated with incidents of violence, and you should not ignore it. You should report it as a sign or a warning of violence. If there's extreme change in behavior, someone that used to be calm, someone that used to be very gentle and polite, but all of a sudden he's very aggressive, he's uncontrollably angry. So there's a change in his behavior that you should not overlook. You need to report that as a warning sign for violence. Stalking. If stalking persists, if stalking has occurred from time to time, then you need to also report that. Retaliation. If somebody is bent on retaliating, maybe he got injured by mistake and he has been apologized to, but he's bent on retaliating. He said he's going to retaliate. Then that is also a warning sign for violence at workplace, and it should not be ignored. So what are some of the responsibilities of employees in ensuring that violence at workplace is prevented? The first and the most common thing that should be in place is respect for all. You should have respect for your colleagues. You should have respect for even people that are below you in the workplace. You should have respect for your managers, your direct supervisors. You should refrain from threatening or harassing others. Then you should report every threat or violent act. Do not say that this is his first time. If he does it again, I'm going to report. No, every single violent behavior should be reported, because if it's not reported, it will not be investigated, nothing will be done about it. And when that act repeats again, it could lead to a very serious incident or serious injury. So reporting a threat or violent act is very, very necessary, and it will help in preventing a serious injury or serious incident occurring. Then another thing that employees should do is that they should cooperate with the employer on any concern. If you have concern of violence or threats, you should cooperate with the employer during the investigation and ensure that it's properly investigated. Then employees should assess every situation. When they are going to work, assess the situation of that place, assess the situation in your workplace. If you're on the road, if you are in a public place, assess the situation and take adequate action. If it's not safe for you to work alone, if you are at risk of violence, then you should retreat and ensure that you have company before you proceed. Then let the supervisors know of any incident and ensure that they are documented. Then call the security if you witness a violent behavior, or maybe the customer is behaving violently towards you. Inform the security and ensure that somebody is around and action is taken immediately. So what are some of the responsibilities of the management in preventing workplace violence? The management have a duty of care. Duty of care is the one that says that every employer have the responsibility of protecting the employee, ensuring that employee is safe and the employee is not injured while at work. So every employer owes the employee the duty of care, and that duty of care includes providing a workplace that is safe from violent incidents, or a workplace that the employee is not at risk of violence. Then the employer or the management is also responsible for general duty, which ensures that every employee is aware of the hazard and threat associated to their workplace. So the employer, the management should ensure that they've done a proper risk assessment, and this risk assessment communicated to the employees, letting them know that in the conditions or in locations where they have identified the risk of violence and put adequate measures in place to ensure that that employee is not injured at work. So this is part of the responsibilities of an employer to ensure that the employee is safe from violence at work. So these are some of the OSHA recommendations to ensure that violence at work is prevented. The first one is that the management must be committed in ensuring that employees are safe and prevented from getting injured by violence at work. Employer must analyze the workplace to identify risk and hazards that are linked to violence at workplace. For example, employers who are dealing with the public, or the employers who are dealing with cash, they know that the employees are at risk of violence. Criminals could attack them. So when these hazards are identified, the employers are mandated or obligated to provide adequate safety measures and protections for these employees to ensure that violence at work is prevented. Then the employer is responsible for providing adequate training to the employees, training them on how to tackle these issues. If they identify threats to violence threats towards them, how they are supposed to act, how they are supposed to respond, the emergency procedures that they should have in place. So these are some of the responsibilities that an employer have to ensure that the employees are safe as regards to violence at work. So some of the violent, threatening behaviors, verbal abuse. If somebody comes to your workplace, or maybe your co-worker abuses you verbally, that is a threatening behavior that should also be reported as violent at work. Harassment. If somebody keeps harassing you, he comes to hook you like this and he's not letting you go. So that is also part of violent behavior, and it should be reported. Indirect threats. Maybe he didn't come to your face to say, I'm going to do you this, I'm going to harm you, but indirectly he's threatening you. You've seen it from his gestures, maybe not verbal, but from gestures, from signs. That is a threat. If somebody comes and gives you a sign like this, he did not say anything, but he has given you a sign. So you will not say that he didn't say anything, that you will not report. That is also a sign of threatening behavior, and is also regarded and is also required to be reported. Non-verbal threats, extreme threats, and violent actions. If somebody comes to punch you in your eyes or punch you in your workplace, that is violent actions and is part of violence at work and needs to be reported. So if there is an ongoing violence at work, what are you supposed to do? How do you intervene? The first thing you should do is to treat the threatening behavior immediately. Don't say, after I will report. Immediately you observe that threatening behavior, go straight to report it and ensure that its action is taken, because you never can tell when this person will fulfill his threats. If he threatens to harm you, you don't know when he's going to do it, either right away or in the next 10 minutes. So don't wait. You need to report immediately, and the management need to deal with it immediately. Conduct a safety and policy training. There should be a policy prohibiting violence at work. Every workplace or every employer should develop a policy against bullying, against harassment, and against violence at work. And anybody who defaults in this policy will be adequately punished in line with the organization's policy. Then you should create a zero tolerance in your corporate culture. Zero tolerance in the sense that the managers are not allowed to threaten their subordinates. The supervisors are not allowed to threaten or use abusive words on them. So there should be zero tolerance to violence behaviors to anyone. So whoever is involved, no matter your position, no matter your nationality, you should also, the management should ensure that everyone is treated fairly and every violent behavior is treated no matter who is involved. If you observe any violent behavior, ensure that you refer it to your management. And if the employee that is causing this trouble continues, then he should be referred to a counseling session. He should be properly counseled. He should be properly treated as somebody who has some mental issues, so that he will be able to come back to his senses without fulfilling some of his threats. So these are some of the actions that you can take when violence erupts in the workplace. So immediately at the face of the violence, what are you supposed to do? Ensure that you give a strict warning to whoever is involved in that violence. Let him know that this is part of our workplace violence and do not try this again. And immediately you have given that warning, you need to vacate, you need to leave that place immediately, because he might reinforce and he might not take your advice or instruction. Then you should call for assistance, call your security, call the workplace security. Then you remain calm and polite. If you are violent while he's being violent, then you can trigger more violent actions and behavior. So the right thing to do is to be calm, be polite, give strict instructions without triggering more actions from the person causing the violence. Then ensure you establish eye contact. Establishing eye contact will let him understand that you are firm. Will also let him understand that you are watching his moves. So the eye contact will help you check where he's looking at, whatever he's looking at. If he's looking at an object to pick up, or he's trying to make any additional move. So you should keep eye contact with him, watch every move while you slowly maintain a safe distance. Then in your tone, ensure that your tone is firm. Ensure that you are maintaining a same tone. You are not shouting, you are not talking up and down. So you are maintaining a firm tone. This will let him understand that you are firm at your decision and you are firm at whatever instruction you are giving to him. Then while you are doing this, you are looking for an escape route. You are watching around, looking for the easiest route to leave in case the violence gets bigger than what it is at the moment, because you cannot, it's not allowed or it's not permitted to also confront him. So the best action to take is to find an escape route at that phase of the violence. Okay, so this is the end of my presentation, and just like I said before, it's just to introduce us to the topic, and then we'll open room for every one of us to share their experience, their knowledge, and their experience as well. So if anyone needs, if you need to share any slide, you also let me know. I will give you floor for that. But now the floor will be open for us to contribute on this topic. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. Um, I just wanted to come in there. Hello, can you get me?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Like some weeks back, also we were having a conversation regarding violence at work, and there was a discussion that in case there is a violence at work, how do we report? Who is supposed to take charge? Is it something that we need to involve the law enforcement agent? Like if somebody verbally abuse another person on the site, there is a physical altercation or there is an exchange of blow. Is it something that we can treat it internally and then carry out an investigation, or we have to involve the law enforcement officers like the Qatar police to call them to come and investigate? Uh, I don't really, I was thinking that because while we were having this conversation, it was like if there is a physical exchange of like fighting, it's already moved from maybe safety related issue to security issue. So I don't know if that applies to our thinking, or if somebody has a point you can add there for us to reason that.
Okay, thank you for raising that topic of discussion. Mr. David, I think you want to come in there. Mr. David,
Yes,
go ahead.
yes. Good evening, all.
Good evening.
Yes, first and foremost, I will just like to address points on the question asked. You see, when it comes to violence in the workplace, the HR, in fact, there is actually a policy on workplace violence, like violence and harassment policy. Every workplace has a violence and harassment policy, drug and alcohol policy, health and safety policy. All these policies are in place in every workplace. So every company, every workplace has a certain actions that are being taken to regulate such kind of some kind of misconduct in the workplace. So for an encounter where there is a physical contact in the workplace, it's not totally off the charts for health and safety, but the due process will be handled as per the company policy for that. So I believe other people will also have their own view or contribution regarding this. Then, on my own point, I just want to add some things regarding this particular topic also. That violence in the workplace can be curbed from the top management. I have seen scenarios where violence in the workplace is actually spearheaded by the top management. The project managers, they assign their foremen, they assign their supervisors that they should be aggressive to get results. So you see them being aggressive on the worker, they appoint some hardworking people who they turn to like lead men or sergeant. And for them to get what they want, they need people to have fear. They need people to have fear that they will report them. And all these things are also contributing to workplace violence. Because when someone sees you and have a fear, it's also a kind of violence in the workplace. They cannot do what they want freely. They cannot feel free in the workplace. They always have a feeling that they are constantly being harassed. They are constantly being threatened in the workplace. So for me, the major point, not saying that other points are not vital, but the major point is from the top management. How they make it a point of duty that the foreman, the project manager, the supervisors have empathy while carrying out their duty. The concern of everyone should be vital. The concern of every individual in the workplace should be addressed formally and politely without giving the person any reason to have fear or feel harassed in the workplace. So that is my own point. And I believe in an organization where we have someone who is from the top management, from the safety side, they constantly bring this kind of topic to the table during progress meetings or during the weekly meetings, so that every person who is the head of every department will communicate this to their department, so that collectively these things can be addressed to all concerned. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. David. Thank you for the answer you gave to the first question or debate that Mr. Emmanuel raised. So I want to add a few things to what Mr. Emmanuel raised. You see, every well-meaning organization has violence and harassment policy. I say well-meaning because not every organization has it. Some of them feel that it's not important. Now, another thing is the organizations that has it, some of them are not known by the workers. It's not communicated. Even though that these policies might not originate from Health and Safety Department, this particular policy might be originating from the HR, but we should be aware of this policy and ensure that we communicate it to the workers. So when we communicate this policy to the workers, we'll let them know what is the consequences of certain behaviors or certain actions. Now, the policy, depending on what the organization have said, the policy could end at, if somebody gets physical with others, then the police will be called. And if the police is called, he will be handed over to the police, and the police will take other investigations and deal with them how they want to do. But there are other forms of violence that can be prevented from getting to the physical aspect. That is majorly where I think the health and safety professionals or our department comes in, by ensuring that we don't take lightly reports of verbal abuse, harassment, or even threats. So when there is threats, it's still not yet physical, but we should be able to take actions. We should be able to report those people to the HR, and adequate action should be taken. Maybe HR will issue notice or issue warnings. So all those things, at some instance, the HR could also cut some salaries, or something could be done so that this person will know that what he has done is against the company policy, and it will not get to the extent of that physical. But if we have not taken action against light violence behaviors like verbal abuse, then expect that it's going to get physical one day. So that is where I think that health and safety professionals should be focusing on. We should be focusing on getting those actions that could lead to physical and stopping them before you get to that point. Then if it gets to that point, then it should be treated according to the company's policy.
All right, thank you very much for that explanation. Actually, what I understood is in every company, there should be that form of, sorry, let me take this call.
Okay, Mr. Andrew. Mr. Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying the topic, and I'm enjoying every contribution. So, this issue of violence can be in different dimensions and categories, especially in the multi ethnic, or in a workplace where you have lots of nationals, you know. So I had a first-hand experience, a toxic environment, a toxic workplace where a lot of violence erupted. So Am I audible?
Yes, we can
Hello,
hear
am I
you.
audible?
Yes, we can hear
Yeah.
you.
Just as the saying goes, this policy and everything may be in place, locked in the cabinet, and people are not aware of it, and um, the policies are just there. So policies, if not well uh, communicated or established in the hearts of people to inform uh, the required behavior, they will just be lying dormant without being effective. That is one. Then there are cases, even we, as the health and safety professional, we experience violence, violence attack. Maybe it can be from top management, from just as Mr. David just highlighted, that sometimes the project managers and the directors can even instigate the supervisors and line managers to uh, form such attitude of violence or violence against the employee. So in my own case, I had an experience where I was trying to correct an unsafe act, and before you know it, I received hot slap as a safety officer. So what do I do in that aspect? And when you as a safety officer, when you maybe retaliate or you try to fight back, whatever you say will be considered as void because they will say you are supposed to be the one to champion safety. Now you are involved in altercation or fighting and all that. So in my own case, when that incident happened, I tried to maintain my calm, but this guy keep attacking. First of all, he gave me try to hit me. Then I try to keep a distance. I was talking to him. This guy is the site engineer. Then I told him this issue does not warrant this kind of fight. You are the one that is leading in control of this. Why are you behaving like that? The next minute, he took his helmet and uh, uh, threw it at me. Lucky enough, it didn't get to me. The next thing he did was to pick a sharp object, a rod, iron, and
I finished with my prepared.
threw it at me, and the thing caught his hand. Then at that point, I have tried to call my supervisor and the HSC manager. So I already make a call. So when the thing caught his hand, he called the project director and reported that the safety officer had injured him. The guy was bleeding, and in short, even while he was bleeding, he was still attacking. So my body was full with blood. I never raised hand. I never touched him. I just tried to maintain my cool. Then the whole management team came to the area, and what happened? I don't want to make your nationality and all that, but you are speaking a language other than English, and I was not hearing anything. The next thing I heard was that pack your things and leave, that have been terminated. So there was an interpreter, and the interpreter tried to intervene. Then I said I believe this, everybody is speaking what I don't know, but I understand English, and I believe this project director and some of the managers, they understand English. So I decided to speak. I requested that I should speak. They said, okay. So I told them what happened, and I told them I reported the issue and my manager is on the way. This is what happened. This is the whole scenario. So I was able to uh, explain to them what went wrong, and they asked him. He was not able to defend, I think, cover up that uh, lies and all that. So they understand that he was the one that caused the whole issue, and they asked me to stay, and they took him to the clinic and all that. So in that same site, in Lakuya even came to the site many times. Police, they will come because physical assault, even damage to equipment. It was I can call that kind of work environment a toxic work environment. So these policies maybe were not communicated from the top management to down to the labor at site and all that, and the whole site was really chaos. But after the queer and the police, after that, were constantly coming, people were arrested, the project manager were arrested, sometimes the project safety manager and safety officers. When police came into the issue after a while, they tried to establish the policy, and there was calm. So I will use that to answer the question of, yes, Mr. Emmanuel, if the matter is beyond the internal control, then the government agency, law enforcement agency have to be involved, especially when it becomes life-threatening. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Kelechi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stephen. Somebody was raising his hand. Adetayo. Yeah, Adetayo, go ahead. Unmute and go ahead.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, please, I want to actually ask a question, because this incident that Mr. Andy actually said happened to me around 2 days ago at site. And unfortunately, thanks to my co-workers that were there, they actually saw the incident, and they were the one that actually intervened for me, and they spoke in their language, because I only speak English, and not to say they were speaking their languages. I would like to say something. On training, I believe they should give training always on this violence issues to the workers. Also, safety officers, I don't know what level of the level at which these organizations they actually placing safety officers nowadays, because most workers, especially those that are not on the same language, if they see that you are a minority, they tend to look at you with an inferiority complex. They tend to put you at that level. But when a fellow language or countrymen of theirs speak to them, they listen. They listen. But if you, the English or a black man, speak, they look at you like as if you are nothing and you have no action, or you can't actually implement any action on them, because it was exactly what happened 2 weeks ago. And really, if not for the people around, I would have been terminated. So I think this should be looked into. I don't want to say maybe Qatar generally, we're having there's issues on that, or maybe it's particularly to some people, but you should try and see how things could work out that it could not affect, or it will not affect more than this, because the rate of violence is getting high. And from the top management, yes, because nowadays, even on the site where even the safety supervisor would tell us indirectly, like, look, let's try and manage these people, because they have one word they keep on saying nowadays. They feel like anything that is wrong, you go home, that they pay us our salary, they pay salary, that is the government that pays the salary. So even the safety supervisor will tell us that we should just keep calm, that we should not mind them, we should just work with our intelligence, because he himself is a little bit scared. So I don't know the level at which we are taking this violence act in this country particularly, or generally. So it's a question and also a suggestion. It's my own experience that I witnessed 2 weeks back. I'm just contributing here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adetayo. Thank you for that wonderful suggestion and advice. It's very vital in this situation. And I will add to that we should maintain adequate records. First, I would suggest that if in your workplace you are not sure if they have violence and harassment policy, ask for it. Speak to your HR, ask them if they have this. If you're able to get hold of it, ensure that it's communicated to the workers, maybe during one of the weekly two-bus talk, or organize a training and ensure that the supervisors, the workers, everybody is aware of this policy. Then documentation. Every harassment or violence, even threats, should be reported and documented. The reason is, if threats are not documented, or if they are not treated early enough, it will eventually lead to violence or physical assault. If somebody threatens, if a supervisor threatens a worker today and is recorded, there is a paper carrying it and he signs that he will not do it again, then eventually he can recede, he can maybe decide not to do it again. But if he does it again, then you have evidence that he has been warned before, and this one is the second one. Then when it gets physical, that is also a part of evidence that you can have against him, because something can happen if that supervisor injures somebody at work. When police comes, police will still ask who is the safety officer there. And the supervisor is not the only person who is going to be in problem. They will still carry the safety officer. So some of these documentations can also be something that can help you in future or anytime when it's required. So that is what I want to add to it. All right, we still have a few more time to finish. Someone else want to add something, you can go ahead.
So I want to also add that us as OSH professionals, I think we usually attend these conferences, these regional conferences, and we usually partake in some webinars and stuff like that. And during these conferences, we can also raise the issue of violence at work, because, from my understanding, I think it's not really taken seriously in the part of the world as compared to the other part of the world. So we can do that by raising awareness if we are opportune to be in maybe in an arena where there is the government officials, this kind of consultation atmosphere. There is a seminar or something like that. We can speak up. We can also advise the regulatory bodies that this is something that they need to look into, and is something that even the issue of mental well-being, which has been very, very important these days, we can also raise that one up for maybe the government can take more action against that. So it could help to create more awareness. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. David, go ahead.
Yes, I just want to share with you guys what has helped me, understand? Because when we come here to complain about the issues we have in the site, the actions we take to solve them matters a lot. I've had my fair share of workplace violence, but there is this particular action and measures that I took, which have been very, very helpful, okay? When you involve the top management, don't take it far to the head of head department from your site where you are monitoring. That's your particular site where you are being stationed. Involve your project manager, involve your site engineer in safety talks. See, you can just invite the foremen, the engineers for a brief PowerPoint presentation where these points are highlighted. See, so regular involvement of these people in this kind of conversation, in this kind of brief safety talks, helps to create a more conducive work environment. Because when the work environment, the workplace is toxic, there is nothing you can do. When you communicate these kind of issues to the people, to the workers during your two-bus talk and your internal trainings, it's not sufficient. But when you involve the top management, your project manager, your construction manager, the site engineer, the general foreman, you involve them in this kind of meetings, like just a brief meeting. It doesn't have to be lengthy because they work with time. This kind of conversations and also the consequences, the reaction, the consequences of negligence and stuff like this, showing them some little videos. This gives them a positive attitude and commitment to health and safety in respect to workplace violence control. So this is the little trick which I am using, and it has helped immensely. We don't need to wait until it escalates. We call the police, we call the HR. From our own part, the little part we can play is this, and it's very, very vital. It's helped me a lot, and I'm sure it can help you if you involve them. It's going to be difficult initially, but when they see the positivity and the contribution it's making in the workplace, I'm sure they will ask for more. So this has actually helped me a lot, and I'm trying to share it with you guys. It's very, very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. David. Do you have any other contribution? Okay, if there is no more contribution, then we'll call it a day.
All right.
All right,
Thank you
guys.
very much.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Thank you, David and Andrew, Casey, Ransom, Aries, Adendo, Francis, Mr. David from Nigeria. Thank you all for joining today. And
Thank you.
we hope to see you again next week, Thursday.
All right. Thank you very much.
Bye.
All right.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.